What's going on, guys? Welcome on into the Marshals Minutes, here brought to you by the Rap City Marshals play-by-play commentators. I am Tyler Lauder. He is Micah Ortiz. We are Mosaic MC's production. And today we're going to bring to you guys episode 3 of the Marshals Minutes, where we're going to give you guys a recap of the previous final home game of the regular season, as well as previewing their matchup against number 1 seed Sioux City Bandits.
So Omaha Beef, they really won the line of scrimmage, especially on their defensive side. It seems to be where the offense is really going good. The defense seems to not be performing. And when the defense is performing really well, the offense is not performing. We saw in Billings, Rapid City Marshals, where the defense performed outstanding and the offense let us down. And in the last game against the Wyoming Mustangs, we saw the offense perform outstanding and the defense performed not so well. And the same thing happened against the Beef. Cannot get a full game out of everybody. I do think there is a lot of good to take out of this, especially with how the Omaha Beef played, the Marshals played, especially on their defense. That defensive line was stout. Cory Henry, 3 sacks. Tony Thompson was disrupting the backfield, and Mike Gant, who's an underappreciated player even. He performs very, very well on that offensive line. So a lot of good, some bad. But a lot of positive notes to take from a game that the score line doesn't say was very close, which it was. It was very close.
25-44 was the final score we had here. Rapid City Marshals, they lost by 19 points. They gave away a pick 6, really like second play of the game. They allowed a kick return for a touchdown. So, I mean, the defense for the Marshals, if you take those away, only allowed 30 points, which is really good considering just how much like Omaha seemed like they were out there. Omaha was 1 for 6 on 4th down efficiency. Same with the Marshals. But that just kind of gives credit to both things that we're talking about. The defense for the Marshals was outstanding, and the offense for the Marshals it's not that it was bad, but it was up and down. It was too much of a roller coaster. There was no consistency for it. Once things started happening, that were working, there's a bad snap. Once, it looks like we're starting to move up and everything. Rapid City Marshals were 3-10 on 3rd down, and the Beef were 3-9. The Marshals, for the first time all season, actually they out-penalized the Beef. But yeah, the game didn't go so well. Andrew Jackson, who we talked about last week, was, guy, they're going to sling it a lot. They don't run the ball too much. They only had, with their 3 runners, they only had 13 rushing attempts in the game, and those were only good for 25 rushing yards total. Time of possession, they had about 10 more minutes of time of possession than the Rapid City Marshals, which allowed them to control the pace of the game a little bit more. But I mean, so many players were gone. Let's talk about those losses that the team had just before the game and how crazy everything was. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you lose Larry Fontelis, LeBaron Mallory, and Devontae Tinsley, which are core pieces of your secondary, and you're forced to play guys who haven't been playing for a long time and haven't been connected with the team. You are you're at a severe disadvantage, and especially Larry Fontelis too, who is a game changer on that defense. So when you lose him to some transactional issues, if we want to call them, you lose a core piece and you lose a big hole. And LeBaron Mallory and Monte Tinsley too, they're good rotational depth too, because not every possession can Corey Tucker be the lockdown corner. You have to have good complementary pieces, and that's what LeBaron Mallory and Devontae Tinsley do.
Yeah, and Mallory and Tinsley actually were with the team the entire season. Something we'd see, like the Rapid City Marshals brought in. They have some home talent that they've been circling in and out every now and then. But if you look at their overall number of players they've used, they're 8th in the league for amount of players they've actually used on game days and rostered and everything. They just kind of rotate out the same type of guys. And losing those 2 who are familiar with everything that Coach Magic and that Dudley want, and then losing Fontelis, who was just like our defensive MVP from the game before, all over the place, literally stopped Tavis Taylor on a goal line stuff. And, and then also you lose Jake Johnson, who finally started to get his rhythm with his offense, as Coach Dudley said. And you can check that out in our interview earlier this week. Now, the players that stepped up did the best they could. The defensive line was getting a lot of pressure. They're going to have to do that next week, and we'll recap that a little bit later. But let's talk offensively. What is a a taking point that you think was positive going into next week?
Our running game, we are mostly considered a passing team, especially with our wide receiver core being so talented as they are. Jeff Mack and FEAO ran wild. They like it's anytime Jeff Mack got the ball, he was falling forward for positive yard. I know a handful, like 2 times I think, where he spun and was tackled for loss, but it really felt like anytime he touched the ball, he was getting positive yards and he was moving the sticks.
Yes,
really hurting the Beef defense.
Yeah, it was 73 rushing yards to the Beef's 25, a massive difference in rushing yards. And there was even a drive where the Marshals ran the ball just every play of that drive. FEAO had fantastic touchdown. It was one of the plays of the game, an 18-yard scramble that looked like, as you said on live, that it was like everybody was playing two-hand touch for the Beef. They didn't want to do anything, about him. But then also we can see this clip right here of Jeff Mack had a 14-yard scramble that he literally fought and clawed his way to that end zone, and showing some real good things going forward for this team, able to move the ball. Last week we saw Johnson use his legs, something we didn't see the week before against Billings, and it seems like that's kind of the route that Coach Dudley's wanting to go. Like, you have these athletes, let's use them. Now let's talk about a talking point that is kind of bad that they've kind of got to fix going into next game. Like, what went wrong really on the offensive side for the Marshals?
The consistency. I know, like AO, he was thrusted upon in the position, and when the first pass of the game is a pick six, that's kind of a bad start. But he fixed those. He found Z Roberson for 2 touchdowns. So like, just it has to be a balance between a running game and a passing game, because pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. They went to the well a little too much with Jeff Mack, and there has to be a balance. You have to use the running game to set up the passing game, and vice versa. We seem to abandon a little bit of the threat of the long ball and just use the running game to set up the running game.
And he was favoring that long ball a lot. AO was really slinging it. No turnover on those long balls. He was really trusting his guys to go 50-50. Had an opportunity with McKinley Smith late in the fourth quarter on a 30-plus yard touchdown right off his hands. But I think that's one of those things. It was a snowball effect at that time where what could go wrong did go wrong, and it just kept going. And the same guy that, mossed the guy the week before that, was slotted into the side of the wall and caught a ball as he made contact with like 5 different objects and people at the same time. Now let's continue that. Let's talk about the good. Let's player spotlight. So player spotlight on the offense. We're going to talk about Z Roberson, who was kind of the MVP of the game based on what he did. He was making fantastic routes that he was running. A couple of times he was getting tripped up 10 yards down the line, where people weren't really calling anything on that. And the referee has to see it. It's fine. It's in their opinion. But 2 receptions, two touchdowns, 31 yards, both fantastic touchdowns. One, AO slotted it in on a 5-yard gain. And then the other one was a he had 36 yards. The other one was a 31-yard touchdown that he went up at 50-50 and just outmuscled the guy. Talk about Z Roberson and his impact that he's had back-to-back weeks with 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he makes timely catches for timely gains. It kind of feels like if there's a comparison, it's like the Chargers' Mike Williams, where like he's just going to score touchdowns, and he's not going to like catch the ball and move the sticks as much, even though he is very productive at that. But this week showed that he only needed 2 catches to be, the productive leader he has to be. He makes timely catches for timely gains and scoring points for the Marshall offense that was struggling. So I think that is a really big highlight for Z Roberson.
Yeah, and I think so as well. And the Rapid City Marshals were able to kind of shut down Tyler Jones for the Beef. That he has been fantastic. We talked about how he is all over the leaderboard for receivers, and he was held to 2 catches for like 20 yards. I think they're both first downs though, but really just came through and did what he was supposed to do. Back-to-back weeks where he's dominated. I think he can have success next week as well. Now, Cory Henry, we have 3 sacks in this game, 5 tackle for losses, a massive game for him. Looking at defensive stats, he is now tied for the lead in the league with 6 sacks. He's tied with Emery, and he's tied with Emery from Sioux City Bandits. So they'll have a little matchup change there to see who has had more sacks. And he's done this in 1 less game as well. So massive game for him. He's now over 10 tackle for losses on the year. And I think that he might be able to continue this, and he might be the one guy that might make like the all-purpose team, you know, at the end of the year based on his play coming on strong. And he is prototypical. You say it all the time.
Yeah, he's long and he is big. I think that's a perfect edge rusher. If you have long arms and you are tall and you're able to bull rush and long arm the offensive tackles, I think you're going to be set. And he's really prototypical edge rusher. He's really productive in the rush game and stopping that tackle for losses, and now tied for first in league in sacks. And he really turned it on late. He figured out how to play this style of football, and he knows how to beat these edge rushers. He really came on late, and he's proving that he, I guess, is tied first for most productive in edge rushers with the sacks. And that's really all about getting. It's about being productive.
Yeah, and if you see this clip that's playing over us right now, on one of his sacks that he had on Jackson, he literally bull rushed the guard or tackle, whatever you want to call him, knocked him back like almost into Jackson, and then kind of just like moved him out of the way and just wrapped up Jackson. It was dominating. I didn't really realize it from our broadcast booth, the area that we were in. Like, you see it so happen so fast, and then you watch it on replay because I go back through on the game and I kind of rewatch some clips and fix some stats that get misplaced. And I like rewatch it. And I was like, dude, he just shoved like a 300-pound man 5 yards back off of the initial jump. And I think he's really coming on strong late in the season. I think maybe it's credit to, like, you know, his diet that he has. I know he has a very strict diet he's on. We talked to him about that and everything. And I think that's really helped him have longevity in games because he turns it on in the second half, we see. Now, from the player spotlight, Rapid City Marshals ended up going 2-7 now. Omaha Beef are 6-3. Marshals are now fighting for that final spot in the playoffs, the 6th seed. And the Beef are going to be fighting for the potential 3 seed as well. I believe 2 or 3 seed. And we could see a rematch for these teams, depending on what happens next week. Now, the Rapid City Marshals, let's preview their game. Let's switch. Episode cut half. Here we go. They're traveling to take on the Sioux City Bandits, who are 8-1 this Saturday, June 4th. And the Bandits have the 1 seed locked up. So maybe they don't play everybody, right?
Yeah, that is a question. Tony Thompson even highlighted that too. He was selfishly hoping that some of the starters would be out because they already have the 1 seed locked up. Like, what is there more to play for the team wise? So this might be considered a trap game for them. You know, they might be playing their second players, and the Marshals are fighting for something bigger. So something to keep your eye on. There's always hope in the CIF.
Absolutely. Now the Bandits, we have to talk about some statistics from them, and we'll kind of put a graphic up here. They are first in scoring in the league, points per game as well. They're third in total offense. We come down and they are second in passing touchdowns. They're number 2 in rushing yards per game. They are dominant in just moving the ball. They gain more first downs on the ground than anybody else in the league. But where they do falter is they are in the bottom 3 for both third down and fourth down conversions as well. So if you can stop them, like they show, like they're constantly moving the ball on first and second down, getting lots of movement. If you can push them into third and fourth down territory, which we saw these Marshals do several times against the Beef. Like we saw like 4 and outs, like 4 plays done, out, get out of here. If they can prolong these drives and these series, they might be able to tire out these Bandits, especially if they're maybe going to rest their quarterback or rest a couple guys to prepare, because you can rest 4 starters each game. It'd be a good opportunity for them to take advantage of that. But yeah, those are some things that they have to work on there and really push. They're about middle of the table on getting pressure to the quarterback. The Bandits are middle of the table on penalties that they force. They're seventh in time of possession per game, which just alludes to how fast they score on first and second downs. And it's all credit to, essentially to their quarterback, who is dominant.
Yeah, I think limiting what the plays he can make is really the big key to success here. I think this would kind of be similar, especially with the run game and like the dual threat the entire team has is really key. So this could be a similar game where, like the Wyoming Mustangs game, where they see a heavy dosage of Tobias Taylor and where they see a heavy dosage of the Sioux City running back. And I really do think it is a big key to stopping the run and committing to the run game first.
Yeah, and Lorenzo Brown, as we're talking about for the Sioux City Bandits, he's 21-3 right now, 21 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's only been sacked 1 time as well. And he's number 2 in pass efficiency in the league, right up there with the Billings quarterback as well. McCollum. And I think that the matchup, let's talk about some keys to victory here. So Rapid City Marshals, they need this. The rumblings around the league is that strength of schedule is a tiebreaker if they essentially beat the Bandits and Wyoming loses to, I think it's the Beef. I think they play Omaha they play Billings, and Billings is playing to keep that 2 seed. So Billings beats Wyoming and the Marshals sneak out a victory here. They'll have a stronger strength of schedule thanks to them playing 2 games against the Bandits, who are 8-1, versus Wyoming playing 2 games against the Beef, who are 6-3, which kind of just makes it a 1-game difference there. So keys to victory. Let's talk about keys to victory just for the Marshals. Micah, let's go back and forth until we get a couple of these down. First key to victory here. What do you got for the Marshals?
Special teams woes. We have to limit kick return touchdowns. If we win that game, we are setting our defense up to succeed. 3 points is something that should never be on the table against the Sioux City Bandits, who they're number one for a reason. They do show vulnerability, but I think limiting where they have the ball and how often they score, especially on kick returns, is a big get.
Yeah, and I agree there. The Rapid City Marshals have allowed several. What do we got? We got like 4 kick return for touchdowns in the past 4 games that we've seen. Realistically, they cannot have those happen. It's just a momentum killer and a mood shift, especially right after a touchdown that happens. And I think what we need to have happen there is Strother needs to, and I'm not going to tell her how to kick and everything, but we need more hang time on these kickoffs to allow the coverage team to get down there. It's really streamlined. She really is trying to be strategical with all of her kicks. Like she's done it twice this past game where she's trying to hit that wall within the 5-yard line is where she's trying to hit it. She's like trying to cough and punt, if you will, off of a kickoff to force teams to drive 45 plus yards on the Marshals, which is smart. And my key to victory here is I think they have to do something that nobody's been able to do. They've got to get to Brown. They've got to get pressure. With 4 sacks this past game, I think over the past 3 games, the defensive line together has like 8 or 9 sacks. Cory Henry is tied for number 1 in the league in sacks. Tony Thompson is like 3rd or 4th as a nose tackle with 4 sacks in the league. And I think if they can get that pressure right there, that's going to help out a lot. We saw Lorenzo Brown, or not Lorenzo Brown. We saw Andrew Jackson, who he would break out of the pocket, and because he was under so much pressure all the time, he was making poor throw choices, like underthrowing receivers that were wide open or overthrowing them down deep. And if they can start getting Brown into that situation, I think that'd be tremendous for them. And the play at quarterback is obviously going to make a big play as well for the Marshals. So what's the other key to victory that you have for these Marshals?
Limiting the penalties. I don't know if last week was an anomaly, but I do think limiting how many times you commit fouls and how many times the ref throws out the yellow is a big thing. I know. I think it was part of the transition where like they're playing with new players, especially with Justin Calderon not being able to play, where we do see penalties that aren't usually made because we are a well-disciplined team. But so I think winning the penalty game is key for victory.
Yeah, and due to the situation from previous ownership, players were allowed to seek out opportunities elsewhere. That's why we lost the 3 cornerbacks. That's why Jake Johnson, we lost him for a little bit. Connor Olson was banged up and injured. Right towards the weekend, we had Cory Henry and Demetrius Davis that were under a suspension. And about 6-7 hours before the game, the suspension got lifted, so they were able to play. And it was just a lot of shifting of who's playing here, who's playing where. Starters changed 2-3 times from the notes I got. I think there's a lot of positives that came out of this. If there was a little more consistency with the completions, I think if they could have sustained drives a little bit longer on offense, they could have taken advantage of how strong this defense was. And I think if they could get rid of those errors of not allowing turnovers for touchdowns or long kick return, for touchdowns, if they can limit those things, they keep themselves in games. There's like 3 or 4 games that the kicking woes have, they've lost by 6 because kicking woes happen, and then they go 0 for 7 on 2-point conversions, where if they just kick extra points, they'd be fine. Or where they're playing close on somebody, and then they allow 2 kick returns for touchdowns against the Storm, and now they're down. So I think if they can limit those turnovers and they don't have to win the turnover battle, but just like don't lose the turnover battle, just tie somebody, You have enough offensive weapons out there that can make big plays and get you touchdowns all over the place. I expect McKinley Smith to return to form. I expect Z Roberson to keep doing what he's doing. I expect Demetrius Davis to get more involved, and for Kevin Chisholm and Jeff Mack to do big things in the return game as well. They were fantastic in the return game, having multiple 20-plus yard returns.
Yeah, Kevin Chisholm. He like anytime he touches the football, he's absolutely electric.
Mhm.
Hardly ever is he doing something wrong. Like we see timely touchdowns from him, and we see timely catches from him. So I think feeding him in key situations can be smart, but that can be part of the trust issues with FEAO. So I just think feeding Kevin Chisholm is a great first step.
Yeah, and I honestly think with all those receiving options you have, I mean, I think all of them should get at least 5 targets a game. Like it should be like a rotation. Like everybody, you take your turn going deep. I'm going to go underneath. One of those is open. We should target, and it should just be constant. And I think seeing how well the run game did this past game is going to help make the Marshals more dynamic next week, or at least this Saturday in a couple of days. And we really could see, this is a trap game. We could see an upset. Either the Rapid City Marshals are going to finish 2-8. They're going to finish 7th in their inaugural season, being competitive in a lot of games, or they're gonna go 3-7, make it to the playoffs, and get a rematch against the Beef, and maybe be able to fix some of those little mistakes and take it back to Omaha.
Yeah, I really think that the Marshals beat themselves in this game. Mm-hmm. Like obviously the Omaha Beef took advantage of our timely turnovers, but I think a lot of the wounds were self-inflicted.
Yeah, and being -2 in the turnover differential, plus also having that return for touchdown, also can do so much damage. But there's a lot of positives here. Another week familiar with each other. It's a very short week, though. They're going from Monday to Saturday. But this Marshals team should be able to adapt. They should be able to overcome. And this has been a Mosaic MC Media Communications presentation of the Marshals Minutes here with your Rapid City Marshals. I am Tyler. He is Mike Ortiz. That is it for us on our regular season home games. We will still recap their 10th game of the season next week. We'll talk about that. We might get a player interview in between there, clip it in here since we don't always do interviews on the road. But we'll have some more things for you guys. So if you are a Marshals fan, or if maybe you're just a fan of the CIF, be tuning in on YouTube this Saturday for all the action in the final week of the regular season before we head into playoffs. It is heating up. It's going to be very exciting. Nothing is set in stone except for the Bandits and the Tropics. Everything else from 2 to 6, 2 to 7, wide open.